Picture yourself in late 2009. Homeroom buzzes with flip phone ringtones, and every other one is the same bright guitar riff. A half-beat pause, then two voices glide in. Taylor Swift's velvet twang following around Martin Johnson's pop-punk rasp, promising that two is better than one. By the late 2000s, Boston band Boys Like Girls was on top of the world. Their songs had found their way onto your iPad Nano, their videos were on TRL, and their lyrics, probably in your AIM away message. Magazine covers, morning shows, double platinum plaques, they collect them all before most fans learn the bassist's name. And then, faster than you can say encore, the music stops. No meltdown, no farewell tweet, just silence. And this wasn't just a lag between albums. For a long time, they were truly gone. So what happened to Boys Like Girls? And why did they disappear right at the moment they seemed so unstoppable? This is the rise, fall, and unexpected return of Boys Like Girls, a band that crested the pop-punk wave, disappeared, and then returned with new vigor. Winter 2005, Lowell, Massachusetts. Martin Johnson drummed on empty pizza boxes to keep his hands warm while Jimmy Eat World posters peeled off the attic walls. He and guitarist Paul DiGiovanni spent their days in college lectures and their nights hauling amps through slush to any open mic that would let them plug in. They burned their demos onto 50 CDs, scribbled the band's name in Sharpie, and slipped them into lockers and onto Hot Topic counters. Johnson put their early songs onto MySpace, and tracks like Hero Heroine and The Great Escape took off, racking up plays into the hundreds of thousands, which at the time was a really big deal. They weren't signed yet, but thanks to MySpace, which for the scene kids was the main place to discover and share new music, they were on their way as a band. Online, The Great Escape shot into Pure Volume's top 3 in 48 hours. This attracted attention from booking agent Matt Gully and record producer Matt Squire, the same guy behind Panic at the Disco and All Time Low, who soon helped Boys Like Girls book tours with other bands like A Thorn for Every Heart. A week later, the band had a contract. On August 22, 2006, the self-titled debut dropped. Teen blogs called it Bubblegum Rebellion, and MTV2 looped the football field video for Great Escape. Hero Heroine covered the slow dance slot. 5 Minutes to Midnight fueled bedroom air guitar sessions. The album was a big hit and eventually went platinum. Their big hooks and bigger choruses walked a tightrope between polish and punk. Their sound blended sincerity with shine and created a pop-punk crossover appeal. They were seen enough for emos and clean enough for TRL. In summer 2007, they went on tour with bands like Hit the Lights, Keating, and Cute Is What We Aim For. In fact, 2007 was a blur of gear cases and truck stop coffee. 280 shows across 3 continents. Side stages became main slots in the late afternoon, and the rusty van transformed into a tour bus. They signed onto the Warped Tour. They were on MTV. Their t-shirts were being sold at Hot Topic. Taylor Swift became a public fan of theirs and even wore some of their merchandise on an episode of the MTV show Once Upon a Prom. Boys Like Girls was a movement. But would their star continue to rise? Or would they fade into one-and-done obscurity, as so many bands have? Every big break starts with a flight and a risk. In spring 2008, Columbia flew Boys Like Girls to a rainy Vancouver studio to begin working on their next studio album. The studio needed something that would take the band to even higher levels. On September 8, 2009, Boys Like Girls put out their sophomore album, Love Drunk. It was slicker, poppier, and full of radio-ready anthems. Fans noticed immediately that their singles Love Drunk and Heart Heart Heartbreak had less punk grit than the songs on the debut, and many feared the band was giving into label pressure to lean more toward radio pop than emo punk. This was a major shift from the creative freedom they had while recording their debut. "I think we were just really trying to up our game," Johnson said. "I think we would have felt like we were treading water if we put out another record that sounded the same." The real breakout of the album was an acoustic ballad called Two Is Better Than One, co-written with the aforementioned Swift, who gladly sang vocals on the track. Keep in mind, this was yet the megastar Taylor Swift of the Eras Tour. She was still on the rise, still recording as a country artist with a smoking hot new album called Fearless, which would win Album of the Year, and a song called You Belong to Me, which took Best Video at that year's VMAs. Still, Taylor Swift was a major get for Love Drunk, And maybe for a brief moment, it was hard to say which of the two acts would break through into bigger stardom. The song went platinum and gave the band a whole new pop country audience, though at the cost of alienating some of their early fans, who wanted to hear something closer to Fall Out Boy than, say, the band Perry. Award shows followed. American Music Awards, Video Music Awards, photo flashes so bright they left purple spots. The fame machine was peaking, but Martin's body had other plans. Amid the band's peak, Martin Johnson was falling apart, both mentally and physically. Performing was taking a toll on his vocal nodules, making performing painful. Everything cracked in early 2010 at the first stop of the winter tour. Halfway through Thunder, Martin reached for the bridge's sky-high note, and his voice collapsed into a ragged squeak. Fans waved it off as charm. He felt something tear. Backstage, a specialist scoped his cords and found nodules the size of rice grains. The prescription was ice cold. Total silence for weeks, maybe months. Press statements promised new dates, but empty months stretched on. Fan forums spiraled into rumor. Some guessed rehab, others claimed fights. The truth was simpler. Without Martin's voice, Boys Like Girls could not exist. Income stopped, momentum drained, and a scene hungry for novelty moved on. By spring 2010, Paramore's Brand New Eyes and All Time Low's Nothing Personal dominated playlists, while Boys Like Girls faded from rotation. In 2011, founding bassist Brian Donahue formally left the band to focus on side projects. Donahue's departure started a round of internal shifts that would take place over the next few years. During this unofficial hiatus, Johnson wrote over 300 songs, which the band culled down to 11 tracks for their third album, Crazy World, in 2012. The album was another lean towards acoustic, Americana-based pop. Songs even more in the vein of their once collab partner Taylor Swift. It was getting harder to believe that this band once opened in support of artists like Avril Lavigne and shared a bill with the All-American Rejects. The album confused fans on both sides of the pop-punk continuum. None of its singles landed, and Crazy World was released into the world with little promotion or fanfare. Popular consensus seemed to be that the band had lost its voice, its verve, and the vision of their lead singer. The world, it seemed, was turning its back on Boys Like Girls. With the band on a so-called hiatus, Martin started ghostwriting songs for superstars like Ariana Grande, Jason Derulo, Gavin DeGraw, and, even Avril Lavigne, whom he once opened for. Johnson would later say that he felt a void for telling his own story, and enjoyed the challenge of playing a character. It also allowed him to detach from the results, he said, because the success or failure of someone else's song doesn't define me. In 2017, he launched a new band called The Night Game, with a synth-heavy 80s-like sound with overtones of Bruce Springsteen. Despite the band's critical acclaim, not that many people caught on to The Night Game, or really seemed to know about it. It was a significant turn away from pop for Johnson into songs that are dark, nostalgic, and deeply personal. Meanwhile, Boys Like Girls had never formally broken up. They just went silent. Their fans assumed it was over. They wondered, was Night Game the end game for Johnson? Or would he discover an appetite for pop-punk and Boys Like Girls again? In 2016 and 2017, the band played a 10-year anniversary tour in support of Boys Like Girls. The tour sold out quickly, but the idea of reunion hung in the balance. Nobody was saying anything official. The tour, anyway, seemed to be looking backward rather than forward. For nearly a decade, Boys Like Girls' place in pop-punk history felt frozen. The band that almost ruled the world, but walked away. But the band didn't catch a whiff of the old energy from the fans and realized that if they decided to reunite, a demand for Boys Like Girls was still out there. Finally, in 2023, the band released Sunday at the Foxwoods, their fourth album and first in 11 years. Critics praised its maturity. It felt like the band was writing for themselves and not chasing trends, as they may have in 2009's Love Drunk. The album was considered at once their most authentic and least marketable. Johnson called on the band to do it like it's 2007, meaning going back to their roots and that initial spark that brought the band together. Foxwoods' first single, Blood and Sugar, is about an empty-calorie relationship that's so delicious you don't care. Johnson called it the song we want to meet you all again with. Foxwoods wasn't about going back, said Johnson. It was about moving forward with honesty. Boys Like Girls may not have reached the stratosphere of punk outfits Fall Out Boy or Paramore, but they did give a generation, or half a generation, a voice. And in 2023, they reminded us that the Great Escape was never about running. It was about returning, stronger, more honest, and full of heart. Fans who had grown up with their music in formative times still call them my band, and the band that got me through high school. The band played 131 shows in 2024. As of 2025, they're actively touring, with dates in the United States and Canada. Recently, they set sail headlining the Emo's Not Dead cruise alongside bands like The Used, Hawthorne Heights, and Say Ocean, all bands that we've explored in depth on this channel. They also landed a spot on the prestigious and nostalgia-based When We Were Young tour, where Johnson admitted, "We have some stuff in the can for a new album," remarking that the band took too long off, and he wanted to make up for it. This was the rise and fall, or rather disappearance of Boys Like Girls. They didn't burn out, or fade away. Martin Johnson lost his voice, literally and metaphorically, but he found it again behind the scenes, writing for other artists. Now he and the band seem to be looking at once backward and forward. Backward into the early aughts to pay tribute to their early MySpace fans and the people who listened when they didn't have a label. And forward into new musical territory, new fans, and new venues. If you like this story, hit subscribe for more deep dives into the stories of your favorite bands. New stories drop every week.